You've created your first AI agent. Awesome. But here's the thing. That's just the beginning. Now, what if you want to create an agent that interacts with your emails, sets up your calendar, and reads through thousands and thousands of documents through a RAG? Sounds great, but then users start using your app in unexpected ways. Costs start skyrocketing, things start slowing down, and all of a sudden, your smart agent doesn't feel that smart anymore. What then? Well, that's why we need to talk about observability. Are you ready? Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Kirk, and I really appreciate you being here. Now, I've been reading a lot of your comments, and a lot of you are pretty positive, but I also been reading a lot of comments about, hey, I want to do something a bit more complicated, especially with agents. Glad you're eager. Before we do that, we got to cover over some more of the basics. We need to talk about what happens when your agent goes wrong, or things start slowing down, or costs start skyrocketing. So that's why we need to talk about monitoring, and we're going to talk about observability right now. Let's talk about current AI industry trends. AI insiders are saying that 40% of all AI projects will be canceled by the end of 2027. Why is that? We have to talk about AI project challenges. First, performance. The more complicated an app becomes, the more challenging it will be to solve latency issues. Next, we have costs. This could be GPU costs determined by your app's infrastructure demands, or it could be usage costs in terms of LLM inference and token usage, aka prompt size. And finally, we have quality and compliance. Is your app behaving the way users expect it to? Is it avoiding hallucinations? Are users satisfied? Here is a typical LLM full stack application. As you can tell, we have a lot of layers: the agentic layer, the LLM layer, and maybe even a RAG vector DB layer. And to find these issues, well, you probably have to be a detective to really find your issues. This is where AI and LLM observability comes into play. Observability is all about understanding what's happening inside of your applications, not just whether they run, but how they run. When you send a prompt to an LLM, it may call multiple tools, fetch data, or chain several steps together. Observability helps you see that entire journey. So some of the basics. Monitoring, that's a starting point. It tells you if your system is up or down, or is it slow. Then we have logs, the raw event logs, messages that your system spits out. They're great, but they're hard to piece together by themselves. Then we have metrics, the numbers you tracked over time, latency, cost per query, error rates. And then we have traces. You'll see this when we start showing you the tracing that we're going to do using Azure AI Foundry. So traces show you the story of a request from start to finish. If you ask an LLM a question, the trace shows you every step it took. And spans, well, they're the building blocks of a trace. Each span represents one operation, like a tool call, a database fetch, a single LLM generation. And you put all this together, that's what observability is all about. Welcome back. Here we are back in Azure AI Foundry. And if you remember our last tutorial on agentic RAG, we created this player agent. So let's go in here and let's try this in the playground. If you remember, we had this agent where we can look up players' numbers. Pretty simple because it's only one document. What number does Kevin Lee wear? And it went to the document. And it should give us a response. And we can go in the info here and we can see the steps that it took. That's good. But of course, this is the playground. Now, before we do anything major changes, maybe we want to use a bigger knowledge base, we need to start thinking about observability and tracing, and later on evaluation as well. But for now, we're going to concentrate on tracing. So here, let's go to tracing and let's go in and create a new application insights resource. So this will live in your same resource group. And let's just call this App Insights player agent. And that's great. Actually, yeah, sorry, I have to do it here. Application insights, player agent. Let's create it. This is our new App Insights resource. And there we go. We've created our resource. Okay, just to show you that the Application Insights resource has been created, here we are on the Azure portal, and I've gone in, I've loaded up Application Insights, and you can see it here. This is the resource it just created. So we have it here, and we are good to go. Okay, before we actually start even doing any observability, let's just remember what we did last time. We went here in the playground, and we looked at the code, and this is where we had a very simple Python program here where we just throw one message to the agent and get a response back. So I've gone ahead and I've created that. Let me just load it up here. Here it is here. I've already created my virtual environment, and I have all my libraries installed here in the requirements.txt. I will put all this up in my GitHub repo, and I'll have the link in the description so you can get everything here after we go through it all. Remember, we ran it actually on the web. I'm running this from my local machine. So remember, before we do this, we have to log in. So Azure login, which I've already done from the CLI. And this is using default Azure credentials, which is fine. But from your local, you have to be logged in because that's what it's going to use to authenticate against the resources. So let me just run this one just to make sure we are good. AI Python agent. And what number does Kevin Lee wear? And should get back, yep, number 13. So we're good. Now we're going to start going in here and adding our traces. And I'm going to explain everything and then show you in Azure AI Foundry where it appears. So this is going to be fun. Let's go. Okay, here we are back on the AI Foundry portal. And I've gone to tracing. And we go here, we can get our connection string for the application insights, which was just created earlier. We need this. So you're going to have to copy this string, and we're going to need to put this into our program to start doing the tracing. So let me bring that up now. Here it is. That is our first program, and now we're going to add some tracing. I'm going to explain this to you step by step, what we do here. But here is our connection string, and I've already gone ahead and pasted this connection string for our application insights. The first thing we need to do to start doing tracing is we need to create our top level tracer instance. That is this line here. And then after that, we call configure Azure Monitor and pass in the connection string and call OpenAI instrument. And then we have our span. Actually, let's call this, I've been playing around with this, Azure AI Foundry. Let's just call this is our top level span that all of our traces will appear in. Now, I am also, so none of this is all the same. This was already in our original program. I'm setting some attributes here. Of course, this is just a standalone app, but I'm giving it the agent ID and the thread ID. So once we are in Tracer, we can filter by our agents and the threads if we want to start doing some deeper debugging. So I'm setting attributes on our span here. And this should appear. What number does Squires wear? So I'm sending a different message, setting Kevin Lee. Also setting the status, the run status here. And if there's an error, I'm going to be spanning that as well. Again, all these files will be available in the GitHub repo. So let's go ahead and run this and see if we get anything back. with trace.py. It is thinking, it's creating the thread just like last time. And I'm outputting the message. Yeah, so we get Squires wears number 11. Great. Now let's go into our portal and see if we see anything. So we're on tracing. Let's do a refresh here. Might take a little bit of time. Okay, it finally came up. It took like a minute or so, maybe because it was the first time. But here we are. So we can see our trace here. Obviously it says agent 5 here, so I probably didn't save it when I ran it, but that's fine. Now if we click on that, we can see our latency here, 18 seconds or 19 seconds almost. That's a long time. But now we can see all our steps that the agent went in, or the actual calls that we did, where we first create a thread, a message, and we start running this thread, and all the HTTP posts that came here. And also, the high level, we have our attributes here that we passed in, these 3 here, so we can later, when we're debugging, we can start filtering on these attributes if we need to dig deeper. But those are passed in. And if you notice, everything that comes in here is blank in terms of what gets passed. And that is on purpose. So if you look at here, this variable, Azure Tracing GenAI Content Recording Enabled, this is by default false. That is because, think about it, we're sending all this information to tracing, and this information can have, it's for data privacy and for PII, personal identity information. I can't remember what it stands for, but it could have any personal information, and that would get sent to tracing. So you do not want to do that by default or in production, unless, of course, you're cleaning up your data through guardrails, which I already explained to you in another lesson, which I'll have a link to. But let's put this on for now, set this to true, and let's run this again and see what happens. Again, you can do this if you're debugging, or if you're in your staging or your dev environment, you're not using real info, you just want to start debugging and seeing information. But there, it ran this time quicker. Let's go back in here and refresh. This might, again, take a bit of time. Yes, sorry. Okay, I had to refresh. There's our input and output. It just takes a little while to load up. We go back in here. We see our input and output. And if we go into our message, we can see we sent back what number to Squires where. And I think that's all for now, because right now, this doesn't have a whole lot of information. I'm going to change this program to start doing streaming instead. And I'll explain why in a second. Okay, I'm back. Now, I just want to, again, outline, because this is important, this input and output is filled out here because of this enabling of the AI content recording in production. Don't do this. I've worked at health startups and insurance companies doing Gen AI stuff. You don't want to get in trouble, especially with health, with HIPAA requirements, any type of compliance, security. I just want to reinforce that. Hope you got it. But in your controlled environment, go ahead. Okay, as I said last time, we're going to change this program to do streaming. And I have this here. And the reason is because the last program, like if you went and just went into here, into the agents and grabbed this code here for this agent, in Playground, this is just a one and done shot. You're not going in and outputting data in a stream once you're getting the responses back. This is better for latency and, of course, for You don't have to wait. You can start streaming events and outputting your response, your tokens that you're getting back at while it's running. So that's what we're doing. And also with tracing and with Azure AI, the tools, you'll be able to see the tool output as well. Of course, we're running the tool to get the files, and that's what I'm going to show you next. So what I've done here is we are running this. Again, we're just creating the agent client, like we're creating the thread and the client, and then we're streaming it and using something called event handlers. We don't need to do this, but I'm just doing this so we can start outputting info as it comes back. And again, another thing I want to point out, I'm added some logging here. So yes, you're doing tracing, but you still want to do logging as well. Don't ignore the other ones. So you want to do testing, tracing, and logging, and also with LLM evaluations, which I'll talk about in another lesson. Okay, so that's that. We are running this, and we are streaming the output. Another thing is I've refactored this to load up my environment variables from my .env file, which you can see here. And we are setting the logger. I'm just doing it as error right now. And none of this stuff has changed. I created my event handler, which again, once we are streaming data, we can attach events using event hooks, and we can get more info if we wanted to. Right now, I'm just doing info here. And of course, if you get an error, whoops. Well, I was doing that just to output it. This is on the run step. This will be when the tool is running. You can go in there and see what the tool is doing. So this here is we're injecting this into our span, the carrier. This is more important if we're using fast API and doing HTTP and getting some more info from the context that the HTTP is in and injecting it into our span so we get more info. Here as a program, I don't think anything will be here. But again, I'm just passing in agent and thread and running it, and then in the stream, and then outputting it. And let's go ahead and run this and see what happens. Python 3, AI Foundry agent with trace streaming. Let's run this and see what happens. Oh, I got an error. Oh, I forgot to import something. 1 second, let me fix this. Okay, I forgot to install a library here. So I've gone and installed it, and I ran the program again. And this one here actually takes in an input. So I'm going to type in, send to our agent, what number does Joe wear? Let's run this and see what happens. This is not really errors. Let me see. What are they errors? Joe wears number 17. Did I? Let me see here. Okay, we do have the response here. I'm going to look at that error. Just 1 second. Okay, I kind of did that on purpose. Hope you'll believe me. Maybe you will, maybe you won't. Okay, so we were getting an error because this here tool name, these were null. So the actual formatting of these, the run step, changed from version 1 to version 2 in OpenAI. So to run this and test this, actually, I just changed the logger to error. Of course, it's not an error, but I just did that because if I put on info or debug, this would be too verbose. So I just did this to test, and things seem to be working, and I'll just show you that. I'll put this back on info and get rid of this line. You can see this just takes a little while. Observability and tracing, it's a bit of work, and debugging and showing the errors. I hope you get something out of this, so that's why I left it there. So let's run this again. Python 3. Oh, actually, I think I can just go here. What number does Squires wear? Where's number 11? And this time we didn't get any errors. Okay, great. Okay, so I ran this quite a few times. Let's go in here. I just wanted to show you this event handler because then you can hook up to hooks and then output more information, logging. And let's see what gets streamed now. So it's going to be a lot here because I was fooling around. So that's the last one, Joe. And let's just wait a second and see if the Squires one comes up. And remember, input and output. Yeah, there it is. Why is that? Because I want to reinforce this all the time. This environment variable. That's why it's there. Okay, so click on this. Now we can see our spans here, create message, and if we go in here, we can see the process thread run, and now we can see our tool call here, which is nice. And we can see that it's going into file search, and which is what we expect. And it's going to the PDF, just like we did in the last lesson. And it's getting some values back, which is nice. So this is great for debugging. Of course, we have the latencies here. We can see how long this took. And this is important because we want to start changing this and adding more documents. We want to see how long it takes. We want to see how big our tokens are as well. So I didn't really point that out, but we can see in our more metrics here, our input tokens and our output tokens. So this stuff will start adding up. This is more debugging that we should be doing. So if you think about a larger program with lots of streaming, this is stuff you want to start thinking about. And of course, this is being monitored. So we go to monitoring here. Again, this is an intro to observability. I just want to show you how to hook this up and how to start thinking about this. But we can see a number of tokens that have been used in inference calls. We can start investigating. I'm not going to go too deep in this because this lesson is all about just getting your feet wet and hooking it up. And some of the gotchas that I encounter, then this, what I presented here, you're getting something out of it. I'm going to put this in my GitHub, and I hope you take a look at this and you get a good foundation to start with your observability of your LLMs. One last thing I wanted to show you with setting up application insights, logger. So we're actually passing in the logger here, and this is not about observability or tracing, but logging, as I said, goes hand in hand, and we're passing this in. And if you go into our application insights in the Azure portal, not in AI Foundry, and I just clicked on logs here for this, and the table I'm going to trace is here, and running the query, and you can see this is our logs here that we were outputting before. So we can go into logs here as well and start debugging. And I remember I told you about the Gen AI stuff. This again is recording a lot of info. You don't want to be doing this. You don't want to be recording this type of stuff in production, as I said. Just a heads up again. But this stuff definitely you'll want to help you with debugging. So I just wanted to point that out. That's it. Okay, everyone, that's it. I hope you got something out of this. That's a beginner introduction to observability in the Azure AI environment and working with LLMs. I know we just covered some of the basics. I can go a bit deeper into it if you want. Let me know in the comments if you want that. Also, don't forget to subscribe. That's going to help me out a lot, and you won't miss great content. So until then, thank you for being here, and I'll see you next time.